Warning. The following podcast contains explicit language, honest opinions and a sense of humor. Welcome to the Brothers Take.
Hello everyone and welcome back to our podcast. I'm Chris, joined by my brothers Adam and Eric.
Hello. Hello. Okay.
We did it! We are back in the room to talk more about video games. And in this week's episode, in the lead up to the Game of the Year Awards, we're going to look at, because in November they always put up the nominations, and there's plenty of time for people still to vote, and we wanted to talk about it now while there's still time to vote. There's still going to be time to discuss it as well before the actual event itself, in which case our discussion will become null and void. So we want to do it with plenty of time. We could all speculate together, but basically we're going to go through the nominations for the categories for Game of the Year and the best music, all that kind of stuff, all the different nominations that are there. There's two things we're going to do with each of them: which we think should win, which would be our personal picks, and then which we think is going to win, which is different. And that sometimes that could be the same thing, but sometimes it might not be. It might be down to just but I think that's the one that's going to get it or whatever. There's a lot of categories that we probably won't get through them all, so we're going to prioritize and start with some of the big ones. So we're going to work our way down the list to start with Game of the Year and work our way down, and so that we have plenty of time to really discuss in great detail some of the bigger categories. And if we run out of time, we will mention the other categories, and we could always continue the discussion, either in the comment section on YouTube or on social media. And people could recommend us some of the games that we haven't played based on the stuff that we do like, as to whether we would enjoy them or not. So if we don't get through them all, that would be the reason we might run out of time, but we will definitely prioritize some of the bigger categories so that we definitely get to talk about that stuff. That being said, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you want to jump into the comments to share your own thoughts on each category and your own opinions on each game that comes up, feel free to do so and to recommend us games. And if you're listening to us on social media platforms, Facebook, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're listening to us on audio platforms, not social media platforms, then you can get in touch with us on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take. Again, to let us know what you think of these nominations, what you think should win each category, any games you feel have been left out and should have been included, and tell us where we're wrong. That's what the internet's for, telling people when they're wrong.
Yeah.
That's why
we are going to be so wrong.
Oh.
It doesn't matter what answer we give. We're
no,
wrong.
We are wrong. Always. Unless when it comes around
me.
And we're right.
I am always right.
Are you?
Yeah.
You know, I was going to dispute that, but actually looking at the screen, you're on the right-hand side of my screen. So you are right. But will that turn into recording? I don't know. So, look, without further ado, we'll let the music roll, and then we'll kick straight into it. The 2020 Game of the Year Awards. Okay, so let's start with the big one.
Have you ever watched the Game
Esports.
Awards?
Which of us?
Any is. Have you ever actually sat down?
I have never sat down to watch the full event. I have always just caught
up with it.
The highlights or caught up with it afterwards, but I've never sat down and watched the whole event. Is it entertaining? Sometimes. I don't know.
I like watching them. I don't know. I've never actually finished one and went, wow, that was great.
Amazing.
But I do like watching them, and I do like this. I like that there's a kind of a singular, there's so many awards given to games. Like every single publisher has their own Game of the Year thing.
Yes.
But I consider this one like the official, in my eyes anyway. This is the official one.
Well, it's like the Oscars of the video game.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But it is nice to I like watching it because you will see a lot of, like, I mean, the Series X was announced at the Game Awards.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I like watching. Cause
I always
like,
enjoy the orchestra.
yeah,
Play
and
along
this
and
year
stuff.
supposedly, like the opening, the Jeff Keighley was talking about the orchestra, practicing and going from, like, going through the Game of the Year categories, which I'll just mention here. It's Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing, and The Last of Us Part 2. And the orchestra goes and waves in between all of them.
I can't wait to hear that.
cannot wait to see that. That's
I can't
gonna
wait
be
to hear that.
insane.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Yeah, no, I like it. Usually, I'm working. I think when it's on. And that often happens with a lot of things. So I have to play catch up.
I think it's on late this time.
Yeah, so I might get to watch it this year. I'll see how it go. And if I can, I will, because I am genuinely interested. And particularly like last year, I wasn't too interested, if I'm telling the truth, because I felt like there just wasn't. It was kind of like
there wasn't enough games for us that came out last year that would actually pique us. Well, this time there
this time there's loads where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
It's like and I'm like, even in some categories, I'm like, would I give it to that one or would I give it to that one? You know, it's like, it's really cool. So I'm actually really excited to see how this one turns out. And I'm really excited to hear what other people think as well about this one. I think there's going to be more discussion around this one. And even after the results, it might feel like the US election where they want to recount.
Yeah, I was about to make a joke about that. Yeah, we want a fair and legal voting thing here, right? None of this false phony crap.
By the way, because I know and voting is still at the time of releasing this and recording this, people can still vote for games, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just for the people's choice, is it?
Yeah.
It's People's Choice Awards. So obviously we can't really say anything about
critics, that. It's the critics in the end that decide which is actually wins.
Yeah. So you're not actually deciding what will get the official Game of the Year, but you will decide for People's Choice Game of the Year.
Yeah.
So is there a People's Choice for each of these categories?
I can't remember actually. I assume so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There must be.
I imagine
you can
so.
vote in each category.
Yeah. I just don't think they announced them all.
That. No, they announced People's Choice Game of the Year, do they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, maybe we should leave what we think the People's Choice Game of the Year is to the very end.
Sure.
But for each category, we'll still go through what we would personally pick and then what we think the critics are going to pick.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Game of the Year. Adam, you want to call out the nominations there again?
Yep, so Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing, New Horizons, and The Last of Us Part 2.
Awesome. By the way, I don't know, it'll depend on how this turns out in the recording. For me, your audio did cut up a little bit there. I did hear everything though, but just in case, if in the recording in the end there's some cut audio at certain points or anything like that, that's just we're still recording over Skype and we're recording multiple things at once, including our audio and our picture and all this kind of stuff. So if there's any kind of little hiccups like that, that's all just down to technical and unavoidable issues. But don't worry, we got everything you said. And it might be crystal clear, and that might be a useless piece of trivia for everyone that I just said. Eric, I'm going to start with you.
Right.
Of the which game, first of all?
I know, like, you're about to ask me which one do you think, but before you did that, you were actually just going to say which one I was going to choose, because you know which one I'm going to choose.
I'm not going to say anything first. I'm just going to ask you, which one would you pick, and then which one do you think they're going to pick?
Right, so I would pick, and you were about to say this. You were going gut, and then you went on to your question. So it is Ghost of Tsushima.
Do you know what?
You were about to go, Ghost of Tsushima is your favorite, right, Eric? I was like,
no, I wasn't. I actually wasn't. I was about to say game. I wasn't about to say Ghost of Tsushima. But anyway,
good cover there.
I suppose this is going to negate as well. Just doing this discussion is going to negate. You know, when we started off, we did like the game of the year for us personally, like our favorite game from every previous year. This conversation is going to negate our favorite game of 2020 unless something like Cyberpunk coming out in December turns out to be even better than Ghost of Tsushima, for example, for Eric, or whatever, either of us. But it is pretty much going to negate that episode in the future. So Eric, you would give Game of the Year to Ghost of Tsushima if it was up to you.
Yes.
And do you think the critics are going to agree with you?
I don't know, because I've heard actually a lot of praise for the game Hades.
Oh yeah.
I've heard and that's in a lot of categories. That's nearly in every category, to be honest. So I feel like I think it is with the critics going to be a toss up between Hades. I would like to say Ghost of Tsushima, but I feel like they want to go down the controversy road and say The Last of Us Part 2.
Right.
Right? I think they might go with Hades, to be honest.
Oh, you think they might give Hades Game of the Year?
Yeah, because I've heard so many good things. It's in so many categories. I feel like it's one of those things I might give it to that.
Yeah, and I suppose a very surprising new release as well. It's not one that I've played. I don't think either of us have played it. Have any of you played it?
No, I haven't played it, but I've watched some Twitch streaming on it. I'm a little like, it's an interesting game. Really interesting premise. I like the art style. I like the story and character interaction in it. I don't like the game though. I don't like the gameplay.
Right.
It's definitely not my kind of game, but it could shock. Yeah, it could shock just because Sekiro won last year. So.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to know what way they're going to go. My friend, I was talking to him about Hades. He was playing it, and he highly recommended it. He said it's amazing. And that was the first I heard of it, and then I've seen it pop up a couple of times and getting amazing reviews. So I am kind of surprised it's in Game of the Year category, though. I'm like, actually, oh shit, maybe this is like way better than, like there's other categories where I'm like, I'm not surprised to see it there because of how highly praised it was.
Yeah.
But that one, I am surprised. But then Animal Crossing is there too, and that's one I really don't understand.
Well, out of all of them, that's the best selling game. So surely.
Right, okay. That's one thing to go off, I suppose.
Yeah.
So Adam, which game would you give?
I actually have 3 answers for this.
Do you know what? So do I.
Yeah. Because I have my own personal Game of the Year.
Yes.
I have what I think the critics are going to vote for. And then I have what I think actually deserves Game of the Year. Those are my 3 answers.
I actually think I have the same, and I think it's going to work out the exact same way. So, yeah, let's hear it.
It's because I'm looking at it from, like when I look at my personal Game of the Year, it's because it's my favorite out of all of them that I've played. Obviously, I haven't played Hades, but I've played the rest. And
right,
the one I had the most enjoyment out of was Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, I had nothing but smiles the whole way through that game. My face actually was paining me playing that, because I was just smiling so much. And I loved the gameplay. I just loved it so much. But the description is recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. There's so much graphical issues with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's an unnecessary install size as well for the size of the game, that there were some serious technical issues with it. Obviously, I think the development of it was partially due to that. It kind of suffered in the development field, and they had to change teams and change engine halfway through development. So that just resulted in that. So due to the description, I can't give it to Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that's my personal Game of the Year just because I had the most fun with that game.
Yeah.
I think the critics are going to go with The Last of Us Part 2. Because I think that's the highest rated game, I think, out of all of them due to the critics. Yep. It's the critics that have the final say, not the people. And it seems as though the critics had the most enjoyment, or at least rated that the best out of all these games here. The game that deserves it is Ghost of Tsushima, because it absolutely delivers on not just a creative with its visuals, but on the technical fields. Like, that fast travel is insane. We don't have SSDs at that point, and it was able to deliver on that, and it really innovated on a genre that I think has been really overstaying its welcome, which is what I call the kind of, like, I suppose, the Assassin's Creed style game. Like, this game is a better Assassin's Creed than every Assassin's Creed that ever released. You know,
Ever.
like they just
Hands
showed
down.
how you make that type of game.
Yeah.
And even the missions that should feel mundane didn't, because they worked in the context of the time, the history, the place, the lore, all of it. Visual masterpiece. Yes, character models are not as good as Final Fantasy or The Last of Us, but this is an open world game, and it still managed to deliver incredible visuals. The way foliage works in it is just a technical marvel. This game looks and performs amazing. And the new multiplayer, which was free, is one of the best multiplayer experiences this year.
Yeah.
I think that deserves the game of the year. And if it doesn't, revote. Just call it revote.
Yes.
It's a
steal.
Recount.
It's a steal. Rigged.
But my
Rigged.
personal is Final Fantasy 7. It just such a strong place in my heart. So
Yeah, so yeah, I'm coming from the exact same place. If someone has asked me my favorite game of the year, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Again, it's for the enjoyment of the music, the portrayal of the characters, the just the nostalgia. And it really came from nostalgia is a huge thing for me, and it meant a lot to see that world blown up and the scenarios re-envisioned and seeing Tifa kick ass in action in the way that she really always should have. And the gameplay was the most fun I've had this year in that one in particular. A mixture of strategy and speed, and just like, it was a perfect blend between, say, Final Fantasy X and Devil May Cry. Like, it worked on so many levels for me. So if someone has asked me what was your favorite game this year, then yes, I would say Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I must say I'm really happy to see it to be considered.
Yeah, so am I. Yeah, definitely.
But I actually didn't think, I thought it was going to be a little under the radar in that category. So I'm really happy to see it at least being nominated. Because when was the last time a Final Fantasy was nominated for Game of the Year?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm really happy to see that, and I think at least it'll show them that putting the work in this way and taking it this seriously is the right road, is the road to go down. And to like make these characters more accessible and more believable is the road. However, I do think Ghost of Tsushima is the game that deserves be my second favorite game this year on a personal level, but on purely an objective technical level, I think it is the best game that came out this year. It hit all those marks that you said, Adam. I would be overjoyed if I heard that got game of the year. I think it deserves. I think Sucker Punch deserves for the work they've put in and hitting all the markers across the board. And I do think The Last of Us Part 2 is the one that's going right.
Yeah.
Now, I actually like a lot about The Last of Us Part 2, and I think people will see that as we go through some of the other categories, because there's things that I have to say about that game that I think are really good, and those are the high points for me.
Yeah.
But I just feel like if you compare that and Ghost of Tsushima and you go across the board, I just think Ghost of Tsushima like succeeds more in the areas.
I think as a full package, it's like, I think it's like when you sit down to, I think I had this analogy as well when we were talking about Final Fantasy VII. I always bring up the analogy of like sitting down for a meal or you're having like.
Hey, food's awesome.
Food is awesome. Food is sexy, man. I love food.
Wow.
Bacon on toast, sexiest thing.
But it's like, if you went to like this like gourmet restaurant and you had like all these different courses, right? And let's say the starter kind of sucked, but the main was nice, and then the dessert was kind of okay. Like, that to me is like The Last of Us. It's like, where just parts of the experience is like great, and they're really good, like those, but just the overall not so good. Whereas something like Ghost of Tsushima, where maybe the main wasn't as good as the last restaurant, but all three courses were fucking tasty as fuck, so the experience was nicer. I think that's what it is. The full package just works so much better, I think, than The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, we'll see. And look at the internet was a fun place when The Last of Us 2 released, so it'll be a fun place again if it gets Game of the Year.
Yeah.
This was rigged, probably. And again, I'm not saying I don't think it's a terrible game. I have no issue with it being nominated.
No,
It'd be really weird if it wasn't.
Yeah,
It would be so weird
it
if it
should
wasn't.
be nominated.
Yeah.
Because it's a technical marvel at its time as well, and there's a lot it did incredibly well, and you'll see that in some of the other categories. But while I personally loved Final Fantasy VII Remake, I do think Ghost of Tsushima is the game that should get it.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's go for best game direction, which is the next category.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's reading them out? Me?
Yeah.
Mike still
Yeah,
reading them
please.
out?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got the screen up there.
Okay,
Go on.
okay. So, best game direction. Again, the kind of category would be awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. And it's Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay, so Eric, let's come back to you. Which game would you pick? And then, which game do you think they're going to pick?
Right. I would pick for read the description again for me, just very quickly.
Awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design.
Yeah. Okay. So I would go for Final Fantasy VII Remake for that.
Wow.
Right. Because bringing I know like they're technically they're not new designs, but it's bringing those old designs to life, bring them to 3D, putting them to the full screen. But they do have new designs. They built Midgar and made it a like somewhat of a living city. You would have went to areas that you didn't go to before, like the upper streets when you go to Jesse's house. Designing that, going up that story. You have all those the creatures and the characters and everything. You had Don Corneo's arena with the Hell House and designing. So I would give it to that. For those reasons, for the bringing this old fantastic game to life, bringing all these things to full scale, I kind of feel like they're going to give it to Half-Life Alyx.
Wow. Why?
Due to not only Half-Life, the fans of Half-Life waiting for a third one for ages. They're critically acclaimed games. But the fact that it's nominated and the whole thing's on VR, and I've seen some of the stuff you're able to do in it in VR, which is really good, and some of the designs and everything. So again, now it's almost the same thing as Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's bringing these games that were on like Xbox 360 and stuff, making them more high def. But now you're actually in it. So now it's all 3D, like recreating the whole system in a full 3D effect, and that you can get the guns and you can look at the creatures in full. So I think for those reasons they might give it a Half-Life Alyx.
That's
for the fact that they're bringing it, into a VR setting.
That's a really interesting observation that I didn't even really think about. Like, I just saw it there and I went, oh yeah, cool, yeah, it's in there. But I didn't even think about the fact it's a VR game that made it in there.
Yeah,
and it's the only VR game that made it in there, and that's really, really interesting. It's a really good observation. Adam, what do you think? Which game would you give it to, and then which game do you think they're gonna give it to?
I think this is a harder category. Just because I don't think Final Fantasy VII Remake or The Last of Us Part 2 should win in any of these cases.
Okay.
Just because I do think the formula for both of them is kind of the same thing, just kind of refined. But when I'm looking at like innovation in game direction, I'm kind of thinking like it probably does deserve to be Half-Life Alyx, just because it does like push the boundaries of VR, but it's supposed to be just an incredible game regardless. Like not just push the boundaries of VR, pushes the boundaries of first person anyway. Hades as well. I think possibly Hades has a good chance of winning this one.
Yeah.
Just down its aesthetics and the way it utilizes the because it's a rogue style game, so you do die often in it and you come back and you're stronger, but so are your enemies, but they remember like they remember you. So the dialogue changes as you keep going. And oftentimes people purposely almost die just to hear the extra dialogue from different characters, not just your enemies, but all other characters that you meet on your journey. They'll all remember you. It takes the concept of what Greek mythology is that? The person who has to push the boulder up the hill for it.
Sisyphus.
Yeah, it takes that
Yeah.
because it's based obviously.
Greek mythology, but it takes that story and applies a game mechanic around it, where it's the constant struggle of trying to get up that hill, pushing that boulder. And I just think that's very innovative. Like to take such an old, like rogue style games they've been around since like ASCII characters before there was ever like you were just using text on a screen. Like that's how old that type of game is, and they've really reinvented it here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think possibly that one deserves to win. But from what I've played, again, I'd give it to Ghost of Tsushima for all the reasons I said above.
Yeah. In this category, I would give it to Ghost of Tsushima. Just from the direction point of view, I just think it turned out to be much better than I thought it was going to be. Even at the start of the game, it got better and better. I thought it was well crafted, well paced. I'm even thinking about the fact that it's an open world game, but it's an open world game that it doesn't just go, here you go. It's slowly opens it up more and more to you. There's plenty to do at the beginning, but there's more and more to do as you go. And there's also a great character story in there as well. Yeah, I think it's directed incredibly well. And again, could be wrong. I think it's the game that's going to get it.
Really?
I think they'll give it to Ghost of Tsushima.
Wow, yeah. I'd love to see that. Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I just think
I think this is going to be such an interesting game award because I do think now the past two categories that we've just done, I think there's a argument for any of the games that have just been mentioned.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why like for example last year I wasn't that interested.
Yeah.
Because it didn't. I don't know. I'm not trying to talk down any of the games that came out last year, but it felt like it didn't really matter which one won. It was like, oh, did you hear what got Game of the Year? And it's like, sure, tell me.
I do
really
feel like
care.
last year it was way too personal preference and not enough objective. Like we were able to look at these and say, well, personally, I love this one, but objectively, that one deserves it. Like it's just such a good showcase of games. Like what a year.
So I think, and it has been a sick year for games, and I think this next category is going to be interesting, which is best narrative, right? Which is really our cup of tea because we play a lot of different types of games, but narrative games are the ones that we go for more, and it draw us in more. So I'm actually not familiar with this 13 Sentinels.
No, Aegis Rim.
Aegis Rim. I don't know that game.
It's on PlayStation. It is on the PS4. Like if you want to get it, try it.
I don't know what it is, but it's been nominated, so it must have a good story.
It's a JRPG, I think, style thing.
Okay.
But it's kind of done like because I actually watched a trailer for it, so it's done almost 2D with really great actually art style, and it looks like you're in like this kind of post-apocalyptic world with these like giant robots and shit.
Oh.
But it's like the robots even have like an old kind of old style, like almost Metal Slug style design to them, but blown up, made bigger. While then the characters have that kind of JRPG design to them and stuff.
Cool. I might look into it.
I couldn't really tell you.
But Eric, what game would you pick for best narrative? And then again,
I think personally for me.
Call him out. Call him out.
So it's for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game. You've mentioned 13 Sentinels, Final Fantasy VII Remake is back in there, Ghost of Tsushima is back in there, Hades, and The Last was Part 2.
Okay.
See, I don't think as a story, as a narrative, right? The what they're trying to tell and the kind of, I know like it's a classic story, it's as old as time, but The Last of Us Part 2's style of revenge story and the cycle of revenge, how it never ends and someone has to end it, is I think the better story, But unfortunately, The Last of Us 2 suffers from being too long, that it almost ruins the story, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I'd like, if Last of Us 2 was it's the length it should be, which is like 50, like it's like 30 hours and should be like 15 hours or something. So if it was that more average Naughty Dog length, I probably would have given it to Last of Us 2 because of its story. I would probably give it to, definitely for nostalgia reasons, Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's no question, isn't it? Because it's the best story ever written, you know?
Yeah. It
Yeah,
adds.
but yeah, I hear, like, my only thing here is, and you know me, Final Fantasy 7, like,
It's a chapter of the story.
it's not a complete story, is it? And I've heard people say it.
It is,
Don't worry, it still feels like a complete narrative, and actually it's like, it doesn't. It's the most to be continued game I have ever played, which is not, I'm not complaining, because all I want to do is put on the next half, and I'm like, come on, it has to be the most game I'm most anticipating is the next part of Final Fantasy 7 Remake. But in saying that, it's a complete narrative in one sense if you want to get into spoilers, but it's also not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll really depend on what the next parts do, will determine how good that story in the first one actually was. It's kind of, that's
what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore what you said.
Yeah, go for it.
And just say Final Fantasy VII's narrative was very good. Because even though, yes, it is one part of several million other parts that they're going to do, because it's such a long, big game, everything they do in it, they do so well, I think. Even though, you know me, I hated the ending at first. Going back to play it, that's a great ending. It's amazing.
But also the narrative within enemies and the descriptions and the items you pick up as well. Like the narrative is more than just what's being said by the actors. It's like it's within the world itself as well.
They even give now within this, and they didn't do it in the first one, I don't think, but they give the summons backstories.
Yeah,
like
and if
Shiva
you throw on your
ice
analysis thing, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So I think for just expanding it and the emotional weight behind each thing, explaining the summons, I personally would give Final Fantasy 7, but I think 13 Sentinels will get it.
Wow.
Okay.
Why?
Why 13 Sentinels?
Because it's there, and it's not in any of the other ones, so it must be a really good narrative.
That's a weird analysis. That's a weird way of breaking it down.
I hope, actually, I'm right about it. Just
It'd be really interesting if Eric is really right, based on, like, you're nearly going for like a gambler's approach of like, well, the odds are like that game's there and it's nowhere else. So
excel in that category. My one for Hades was it's in all the others, and I heard stuff about it, so I say I'll get it. Hades you gave here. Half-Life Alyx for Best Direction. It's not anywhere else. It's VR. I'll say it's that one.
Adam, which would you pick for best narrative, and then which do you think is going to get it?
I really like. I'm not going to mention it any further because just Final 7 remake. Just know that from me, it's going to be in every category. It's the best, right? Anyway, let's move on. I think The Last of Us Part 2, I think, is going to win.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that when the critics were reviewing this game, they didn't seem to focus at all on anything bar the story. There was so much focus on the story. It's like as if the story is like its only selling point or something, you know? And we've talked at length of, you know, some of its finer moments, some of the finer things in the game, such as, like, well, graphically, obviously, it's really impressive there. And I thought the story was one of its weakest points. But it seems as though the critics were really selling it as, like, the story is the reason to love this game. And because of that, then I think that's what they're going to vote for. But due to the description again, narrative development in a game, I think Hades deserves it due to that circle.
Rogue system?
Yeah, it's the way it tells its story. It, like, utilizes that death and revive. There's such typical game mechanic of dying and coming back, but that continues the story. It doesn't. You're not starting again. You're continuing.
But like,
on.
Shadow of War or Shadow of War did that.
They kind of
Like,
do
that's
that
what
with
that
a nemesis system, yeah. But this is different. That NPCs, like
react.
like
Yeah, I
Zeus,
suppose, yeah.
for example, or Aphrodite, you can go meet them, and they'll remember the last time you've met them, and they'll have different dialogue now because of your experience and your equipment and stuff. Like the level of dialogue in this is like ridiculous, and it's not just written dialogue. This is voice acted as well, so it's it's insane the high quality of just narrative development.
Yeah.
So I think that one deserves it.
To be honest, I don't know enough about Hades to comment on that. And yeah, I'd love to give it a go because there is such high praise for it. Based on the ones that I do know,
Yeah, I might buy it.
and
I might buy it after this.
I've kind of given away a little bit of how I feel. Like, okay, so Final Fantasy VII Remake, for example, is probably my favorite story this year.
Yeah.
But objectively, I would think not the best narrative, right? What I'm trying to say there is because I loved having all these theories and trying to dissect the imagery and it's like it seems plain and simple, and then suddenly it's like, whoa, you've just taken something that I've known like in and out for the last 20 whatever years.
Yeah, I suppose that's the only game where the narrative expanded beyond the game.
Yeah, and now you've twisted it in such a way that I don't even know. But I can't escape the fact that as much as I love it, it really will. It's really like a movie series, right? In a way that I've never experienced in gaming before, in that it will all depend on how they stick the landing. The story of the first one might actually get ruined by how they carry on in the next ones, or it could turn out to be the best thing ever. At the moment, it's a real high point for me, but it's such a to be continued thing that it's really hard to just, I don't know. For me personally, I think they're going to give it to The Last of Us 2. I agree that the critics seemed really, really, really impressed with the narrative of that one. And while I liked the moments in it, it's the overall narrative that actually bothered me. Because I always got to the end and went, what was the point?
Yeah.
What was the point in that narrative? And it's like you might have told it well, and there was loads of great experiences within that I really loved. But in the end, what was the point in The Last of Us Part 2 versus The Last of Us Part 1, which seemed to have so much more to say about humanity, I felt, than the second one did. I might sound like a broken drum here, or a broken record, I should say.
Broken drum is still a drum.
It's still a drum. Yeah, you could beat that and it still sounds kind of cool. I think best narrative is Ghost of Tsushima. I think they told a really good story and paced it really well with Jin Sakai's journey of an honorable samurai to questioning the samurai code to becoming a ninja, and giving a love letter to samurai culture and to samurai movies and the whole mythology of samurai, but also taking the time to criticize it and to criticize the samurai code. I just think it was a really well told narrative and much better than I was expecting. And making a superhero origin story in a samurai game, are you kidding me? I was like, this is way more impressive than it ever should have been. And the trailers and all the talk leading up to it did not sell that at all. Like, they did not at all talk up the narrative. Nobody did.
No.
Nobody did. And I think it's actually really impressive and told really well, and paced really well. Even though I preferred the experience Final Fantasy VII Remake, I just think as a contained full narrative, like there is a full, by the time you get to the end of it, you don't actually, like, even though I think we will see Jin Sakai again, you actually don't need to, like, that could be the end of his story. You never need to revisit Jin Sakai. It was a fully contained experience.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me. I still think they will give it to The Last of Us Part 2. Okay, in the next one, best art direction. What's the description on this one, Adam? And then the nominees.
So this is for outstanding creative and/or technical achievement in artistic design and animation, Again, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Last of Us Part 2. So Ori's the only new one there.
Well, you know what I'm going to say with
I
my
just-
gambling idea.
I have to say here, just for a second before we get into it, I'm really impressed. And it's totally biased. Like, there's some of these that I need. Like, there's some where you know that they're gonna get a lot of nominations and all. I'm so happy, even if I don't think it's gonna win or should win some of these categories. I'm so happy to see Final Fantasy VII Remake get nominated so many times.
I'm happy with that, and Ghost of Tsushima getting nominated so much. Last of Us Part 2 to me kind of seemed like a let's throw that in for controversy. Like
No,
there's
Well,
some-
no
I
way.
don't agree
Like,
with that. I don't agree with that.
I don't know. There's I don't know. There's some places here I'm a bit like now really.
As angry as that game made people, I think it deserves the nominations it's getting.
definitely does. Yeah.
I don't think it deserves all the wins.
No.
That's a different thing.
It probably
I
will get
think
it.
it deserves. Anyway, so best art direction, Eric, we'll come to you again first.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. It's going to win.
I think I do. Based on the fact that it's nowhere else, Eric. What is
Yeah, I'm going to
Well,
say.
actually, it is.
Based on the fact that it's nowhere else, I'm going to say Hades is going to win it. Yeah, I'm actually, when it comes to how the critics are going to, I'm actually in a toss-up between Hades and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Due to Hades' kind of very comic style designs that it goes for.
Mhm.
And then Ori and the Will of the Wisps has such a unique, wonderful fantasy style design to it, but yet they kind of do have a twist of a dark turn, kind of like Hollow Knight as well. Hollow Knight kind of looks like this real cartoon one, but then it's like kind of horrific. So I think I'll just do my one. My one would go to Ghost of Tsushima. On its colors, the vivid world, the design of the armors, the fact that each armor has these layers to it that adds to it the accuracy of the designs of even all the various masks and hats and the Mongols and the design of the different types of Mongols and the ships and the houses, everything. Even then, when it comes to Legends that came out and the design of the Oni in it and then the goats, and me and Chris were playing the story of Legends, and you have the weird like hearts floating in the sky, and it's a weird, horrific, grotesque world in the multiplayer. I would give it to Ghost of Tsushima for best art direction. I think they might give to Hades, the critics.
Okay. What do you think, Adam?
This is a really tough one.
Yeah.
This is really tough. Like I think Final Fantasy VII Remake had the best character models out of all of those games. Just the level of detail and lighting as well. Like we've talked about, like when you're walking through, and the neon lights are reflecting onto the Buster Sword on your back.
Yeah.
And just the accuracy of it, it really does push the Unreal Engine as well as to what it can do. Like it just looked stunning. Whereas Ghost of Tsushima, then with the environment and the way you follow the wind and that kind of, it's not just the visual of it, but also to interact with the visuals. It's just really something special. I kind of feel, I don't know about Hades and Ori just because they look great, they look amazing, but they've been done. That kind of art style has been done before, like Ori, the first one. Like this is an advancement on that, obviously, but I think it's already been done. You see, so I don't know if they'd win. But then The Last of Us Part 2 is such a finely crafted, really pushing the boundary of the system. The technical achievement of it is insane.
Yeah.
Like just the subtlety in the expressions of the actors' faces and stuff.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Well, even just that when you're watching Joel's fingers play the fucking guitar.
Yeah. I think
It's those dogs in the background are going nuts.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
I
hate
don't know
this
what they're looking
conversation.
They're like, you guys are crazy. You go for all the wrong ones. This is rigged.
my
is one of the hardest
personal best art direction would be Ghost of Tsushima. There's not once that was I not overly impressed by just the visuals of that game. and the consistency of the world as well. Like, it doesn't matter where you go, everything is painterly. It's the only other game that gave me the same feeling as, I guess, Skyrim, when you're kind of walking around and you just
take in the world.
Yeah, you just can't help but be in awe of the world around you. But I think the critics are going to go for The Last of Us.
Okay. Can I say I'm really surprised that I thought Ori and the Will of the Wisps was older. I didn't realize it could be nominated this year.
No, that came out. It was the first one, Ori and the Blind Forest. That's the old one.
Oh.
This is the second one.
Okay. And this is the one
that does look amazing. It looks stunning.
Yeah.
Like, it really does.
This is the one that I had to go at your house that time, right?
No, that was the first one.
Yeah, that's the first one, but it's the sequel to that. So it's that style, so you know by looking at.
I know it's style, but I can't really comment on how it looks. But I'm familiar with the artwork. I kind of agree across the board. Any of these could win. And it wouldn't feel like a steal, you know what I mean? It wouldn't feel like it's like any game was robbed in a way. It's kind of like I think if any of them get it, you're like, yeah. I mean, you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that opening intro even is the best thing I've ever seen on anything.
And the particle effects as well.
Yeah.
Insane.
And then you look at Ghost of Tsushima, and you're like, every time you enter a new forest, or you look up at the moon at night, and it's just the most fucking breathtaking piece of scenery I've seen in a game before. Hades then has such a stylistic vibe to it, you know, and you're kind of like, well, you know, it's a different kind of art. It's not going for realism. It's going for this unique style that it has unto itself. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a similar thing where it's like you're now playing and interacting with a cartoon and animation, and you know, it's not like the real. And then, but The Last of Us Part 2, then you're like, just look at the fucking snow, look at the muck, look at the fucking. Look at me on this horse right now, walking through this forest, and I feel like I could touch those leaves. Like,
look at all the blood.
It's yeah. It's ridiculous.
Why do you always resort towards violence?
No,
yeah,
you know the clip
we're all
in
like, oh, look at
the lambs.
You know, no, it's Tim in Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. When he gets up,
Look at the blood.
Yeah, I remember that now. I think my personal pick again here from the games I played would be Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm saying a lot I've noticed, and I didn't actually realize I was going to say it as much as I am. But I do think that just it really carries the Japanese style and aesthetic through the game, implementing the wind throughout the actual, like the way the leaves move, the trees move, the different colors, the lighting. I think from the ones I played, it probably does have the best art direction personally, but I think the one that they'll pick, and again, I could be totally wrong. I have a feeling Ori and the Will of the Wisps as an artistic kind of coloring book that's happening in front of you.
That's one of the first times you and Adam disagreed on games.
Yeah, I think in an art direction category, I just think that one looks more like a painting almost on the screen in front of you. And I don't know, I like realism is awesome and all, but there's just something that's like really creative about doing something that's not.
Yeah, like I wasn't coming from a realistic standpoint. I was just coming from where it says the outstanding creative or technical achievement. That's kind of where I was coming from. And like, obviously Ori is amazing, but when I think about it in terms of technical achievement, I don't know how far it advances the original tech. That's kind of where I was coming at it.
Yeah,
but it is absolutely amazing. And if it won, I'd be like, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Like I said, like if any of them win that category, I have no beef with any of them winning that category. To be honest, I think that one's the next one. However, I'll be really annoyed if any game other than the one that should win wins.
Best
this
score
one
in
is
music.
Just there's no competition. Okay. So best score in music. What's the description and then
outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack. The nominees are Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, The Last of Us Part 2.
Eric, need I ask?
This one a little bit. This was a little bit tricky.
What?
I'm ignoring the last three, to be honest, because I haven't played Hades and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and The Last of Us Part 2, I'm pretty sure I've said it before, I rarely ever even noticed its music. Its soundtrack. Right. So, but for two different reasons. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Doom Eternal, I'm a bit like, because Doom Eternal gets you pumped. Remake gives you the feels, but it also gets you pumped. So I'm going to go with that one, actually, just on that basis. Final Fantasy VII Remake. And the critics might go for it as well, based on the feel of it and the fact that it all, like, just getting the music, revamping it, putting a bit of reggae on some of them, putting a bit of hip hop on others, bit of rock as well, and then the fact that you have the vinyls, like the vinyl tracks that you can play on the jukeboxes and stuff, where again they have like the hip hop chocobo team or the electric. Yeah, so I think that, because the amount of work they put in to revamp this classic music from Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm going to go with that, and think the critics are going to go for it as well, or at least hope.
Adam?
I agree. I think the star of the show of Final Fantasy VII is the music. I think that's my choice, and I think the critics are also going to choose it. And if they don't, they're absolutely bonkers. I have played Doom Eternal's music, and although good, it's not as good as the first one, and it's nowhere near as good as Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's not even debatable.
Yeah, I agree 100%. This category is the most. It's like any of the other ones is like, yeah, I could go to that or that, and I wouldn't mind, and yeah, it's fine. I don't mind which one gets it. Art direction is like any of them could get it. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Happy days, you. This one is Final Fantasy VII Remake from me, and the critics are gonna pick it too. And if they don't, bullshit. If The Last of Us Part 2 wins Best Music over Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's bullshit. That's the one where I actually get mad.
Yeah.
That's absolute.
See,
horseshit.
Ori could.
No.
It could.
No.
It could. Like, the only thing I can think of is that, like, maybe the critics might be a bit, sure, look, it's been done before and you just made it nicer, which they don't really realize how difficult that actually is. But Final Fantasy VII Remake absolutely deserves to win out of all of those. No question about it.
100%. Like, if you get one piece of memorable music in a game, I tend to go, wow, that game had a really good score, and then I just put that one track on a playlist or something, and I go, yeah, I remember, like, that game had a great score, you know?
Yeah.
Like, for example, The Last of Us Part 1, which, yeah, mood and atmosphere works all the way throughout. It's great. There's really only one piece of music that I would listen to on it, and I go, that game has a great soundtrack, so good. Final Fantasy VII Remake, every single track is like that. It's ridiculous. It's the most pumped I've ever been. I bought the soundtrack. They're going to do an orchestra world tour with that. You don't do that with every, like, often what you do is an orchestra will play, you know, they'll go around the world and they'll play songs from lots of games.
Yeah.
In a world tour. There's an orchestra going around. The official orchestra are doing just that game on a world tour. I think it's very clear that the music is a high selling point. You know, it absolutely deserves it.
It's almost like we're fans of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's almost like we enjoyed it.
Only the music. No. But this will go to show that, like, in that category there, people might have picked up that I'm like, if The Last of Us 2 gets out, I'll actually be mad, right?
Yeah.
And people might pick up that I'm like, maybe I dislike The Last of Us Part 2. You'll see in the next category that's not true. Best audio design.
Recognizing the
When I
best
saw that,
in-game audio and sound design. Doom Eternal, Half-Life Alyx, Ghost of Tsushima, Resident Evil 3, and The Last of Us Part 2.
So Eric's obviously going to go for Resident Evil 3 there because it isn't in any other category.
Yeah, that's how it
Eric,
works.
we'll come to you first.
Right. I think this is, again, a no-brainer, personally. Like, again, it's very similar to the best score in music. I'm gonna pick one, and I would say that the critics will pick the same one, right? Which is Ghost of Tsushima. I should have joked there and went for Resident Evil 3 actually, but no, Ghost of Tsushima. Right?
Okay.
Because the first thing that comes into my head is the nature sound, the trees, the wind, the storm, the foxes, the birds. The whole thing. So I think that the sound of the steel clashing, horses, feet and whatnot, I think that had the best audio design, Ghost of Tsushima, because it really brought the natural world alive. And I think that's almost one of its biggest things about it. I think maybe that's why people never really focused on a narrative that much, Chris, because of its natural world was so bloody beautiful. That's why everyone focused. So I'm going to go for that. I'd say that the critics better go for it. They better go for that. Hunt them down and tell them that they're wrong.
Just follow them a dark alley and just go,
I will write them a strong.
Hey, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
And just leave.
Okay, Adam.
This one's kind of hard to tell just because I haven't played Half-Life Alyx, and I imagine a VR game sound design is probably like really damn important, and considering how highly this game has been pushed up as well, we've seen it in another category and it's been praised this year's. I have a feeling that the audio design in Half-Life Alyx is probably above and beyond the rest of these games here, just because it has to rely on it for positioning. But I don't know because I haven't experienced it. Out of the ones I've experienced, I'm going to give it to The Last of Us Part 2. The audio in that is terrifying. It has scared me like more so than everything else in the game. Like, if I could just turn the audio off, I'd just walk through that game. It's fine. Like, the scary factor of that game is its audio. And also how it just uses the audio, like the whistles of the scars and stuff like that. Like, that is such a cool, like, it's such a unique, what the clicker sound was for the first one in creating a unique identity for the first game. The whistles, I think, in this are quite unique in creating a language with the scars, but it's also terrifying because you hear it and you know what's ahead and you're trying to pinpoint the positioning of it. So for me, it's The Last of Us Part 2. I kind of have a feeling Half-Life Alyx stands a chance here, though, just because, again, I haven't seen it or experienced it, but just thinking about it on a technical level, I imagine that one has a good shot with the critics.
I think there's good observations made all around there by the two of you. For me,
thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guy. I'll give you an A+. But for me, if it was up to me, it's The Last of Us Part 2. I was teasing that before we got into this. I think when we talked about rating The Last of Us Part 2, and we did a category by category, I'm pretty sure I gave it sound a 10 out of 10, and I'm pretty sure when I talked about it, I was like, it is the best thing about the game. Yeah. I still feel that way. The clickers sound ridiculous. The gunshots sound impactful. Even just the sound of reloading or clicking the gun or modifying the gun, the sound is absolutely incredible in that game.
Yeah.
And so this is like one of those categories where I'm like, that absolutely deserves to be in there. And if it was up to me, I would give it to that. That's not to say that Ghost of Tsushima does not have amazing sound. It also does. And I agree with you, Eric. All the nature sounds and everything are incredible. And if it won it, I wouldn't be mad. You know? I really don't know which one's going to win. I think you made a good observation there with Half-Life Alyx, especially with it being a VR. I hadn't really thought about that. It's a game I haven't experienced, so again, can't really say. I think you could be right, though. Maybe the critics will go for that one. It's nominated there, so the sound must be good, and it's within VR. And VR games don't get nominated at all. Like, there is a VR category.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
not
been
just
nominated twice.
Yeah, it's not just in the VR category. So,
it's
a good observation.
I didn't think about that either. How important sound would be to VR, actually.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the critics actually might go with Half-Life Alyx, but I would go with The Last of Us 2.
Okay.
So, next category. Best Performance.
Awarded to an individual for voice-over acting, motion, and or performance capture. We've got Ashley Johnson as Ellie, Laura Bailey as Abby, Daisuke Tsuji as Jin Sakai. I probably butchered the fuck out of that. Logan Cunningham as Hades. And holy fuck, how do you pronounce that?
I think it's Najee Jeter.
As Miles Morales.
As Miles Morales, Spider-Man.
We apologize for pronouncing those names wrong if we did.
Yeah, if we pronounce them wrong, it's just that we're not used to the spelling of it. But, okay.
Just used to Cuevas and Cormacs.
yeah. And Fiaclas. which is actually teeth. That's not the name at all. Viagra, even. So Eric, again, going to come to you first. We're going to keep this.
Ooh, okay.
triangle going. This is a tough one, I think.
Yes, it is. Because I didn't see enough of Miles Morales to appreciate that man's performance. I was about to say his name, but I don't want to butcher it. So
It's not Najee. It is Najee, is it?
It must.
yeah,
be.
but
I
it could
think
be.
so.
But it could be Naughty. It could be a silent J. You don't know.
It could be. Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yep.
it could be a Naughty heater. You know, the J pronounces a H. You have no idea.
I genuinely don't. I don't know.
So anyway, I didn't see enough of Miles Morales to be able to appreciate his performance. I did not play Hades, so I don't know about Logan Cunningham. And I don't think Daisuke Tsuji, maybe? Your man who plays Jin Sakai, I don't think he will get it. Based on the fact that, I think, Chris, you even pointed out when you were first playing it, at the start of the game, he is very kind of almost wooden.
Right.
That is on purpose.
It is, yeah.
It is on purpose for the character. But I feel like on that basis that he is wooden for like nearly a whole first act. And it's only after the first act, really, when he starts to actually show some sort of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And starts to kind of show the range that the actor can play. I feel like the critics will go between Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey, and I feel like they will go for Laura Bailey. I feel like the critics will go for her.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the fact that, again, this would just be down to my personal opinion, but I feel like Laura Bailey made that story better. Like her section, Abby's section of The Last of Us Part 2 was a better section, and I feel like she was a far more, even though at the start of the game you absolutely wanted to kill that character,
Yeah.
you kind of, when you did play as her, you were like, actually, I'm torn now. So I feel like on that basis, the critics might be like, well, the fact that she can make you torn, at first you want to kill her, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually, I really like this person. And I like her story, and I like her interactions. I feel like they'll choose her. And I will go for myself. I'd actually go for your man who plays Jin Sakai.
For what reason?
Because I felt his journey was a way more interesting, and I actually would go from, based on what I said just a couple seconds ago, his range. To go from such a wooden character to a character so confused and angry and broken and not really knowing which side is right, and the fact that when he is talking, the justifications that he creates for himself, and the fact that that actor was able to push that across. So that's what I would go for, but I think the critics go for Laura Bailey.
Cool. Okay, Adam, what do you think?
I think it's obviously between Ashley or Laura. I think for me personally, it's Ashley Johnson as Ellie. I think regardless of the writing of any of the characters, we're talking about their performance here. And although Ellie becomes such a maybe an annoying character or perhaps an unlikable character, Ashley's performance throughout it is solid and never breaks. Laura's for me, like, I think critics could go for any of the two. You could be right, Eric. They could go for Laura Bailey. But for the reasons you specified, I think it's hard to tell whether that's the writing or the performance. And for me, I don't think her performance was necessarily good. Her journey was good, yeah, but that's the writing and the characters around her made her section of the game better.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Laura. But for me, it's Ashley Johnson. I think I really felt for every moment that she had decisions to be made and stuff like that. I could see the confusion in her face. I could see her being broken. I could see, like, when she's like breaking down in tears. The bit where, like, even when she subtly plays the guitar, just the small intricacies in her face, even you could tell a lot with her. I didn't really get that with Abby and Laura's character at all. But so I think I'm gonna go with Ashley, and I think the critics will go Ashley.
Cool. Okay. For me, this category, I think something dawned on me there actually, as Eric was talking about, like Jin Sakai's character arc, right? Which is, I think, why actually for me that one had the best narrative. Was that within this open world game, you actually have this character narrative of someone slowly changing and having a full arc and becoming this other thing. And I think he did a really great job in like restricting himself until really and slowly, really slowly peeling back until you see the humanity underneath the samurai code. But I think that's not just down to him. I think that is actually part of the narrative and part of the directing and part of the writing and the whole way along, right? Not to say they didn't do a great job. Miles Morales, I'm not nearly far enough into it. I like the guy. He's really charismatic. He's funny. He seems like a good kid. Really good. I think people are going to relate to him. But for me, this category, I agree, really comes down to Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey, I think. And this is another category where I think The Last of Us 2 is strong, which is the performance of the characters. Again, regardless of whether you agree with the narrative, how they're being performed is excellent. So it's like, you could say, like, if I was to say Troy Baker was excellent as Joel in The Last of Us 2, it's like, no, he wasn't. He just stood there and died. It's like, no, like, he didn't just stand there and die. Okay,
he stood there and died really well.
Character, yeah, and he performed it really well.
It's good.
So, I think for me, it really comes down to Ashley and Laura here. If it was up to me, it's Ashley Johnson.
Yeah.
I said it before. I think the way she performs Ellie in this game is incredible. You can tell that real tears have come out in her performance playing this game. She went to dark places to play it, as in the character. There's heartbreak in her. There's confusion in her. There's conflict in her. It's a miserable journey with her, and you can feel her anger. There's moments of light. You still get that sassy teenager at times as well. You still get her little quips and a bit of comedy.
The birthday scene alone, I think,
is incredible.
Showcases like going from the brutal character to this, like, again, the girl that we once knew. That alone, I think, is way better than anything Laura Bailey did throughout the game.
Yeah, she plays like multiple ages in it.
I do think that a reason Laura could win, though, is that her performance was so effective that genuine people death threat her in reality.
Well, you're
genuinely thought it was her.
You're leading me to the next bit. While I would choose Ashley Johnson.
Yeah.
And I hope she wins because I think it's the best performance I've seen in a game this year. I think Laura Bailey is who the critics are going to pick. Not to say that she did a bad performance. She did a really good performance.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. But I do think there's an element to it now where it's like comes down to a little bit of like bravery for taking on this role and for living with it after the fact and stuff. And it's like, we need to congratulate her for just, and then in some ways it's like,
that could do more
maybe,
harm.
Maybe, yeah, I know. It could. It really could. This could backfire in multiple ways. Or maybe it'll give her the pat on the back to say, no, you know what, it was worth it. And, I had a tough time, but at least there's some recognition of the work that I actually put in. Because she didn't do a bad job by any stretch of the imagination. I wouldn't be mad if she got it.
I think it comes down to those two. Really.
I personally would pick Ashley Johnson.
Yeah.
But I just have a feeling it's going to be Laura Bailey.
Yeah.
Is there, actually, just out of curiosity, is there anyone that you feel is missing from that category that should be there? Because always just 5, is it? Like some of them go for 6 or
some of them a few more.
I do think it's a bit unusual that no one from Final Fantasy 7 remake
I
is
do
there.
as well. And
possibly Tifa.
I was going to say, I think it should be Tifa. I think Tifa should be in there. I don't think she should win. Like, if she was there,
I think she does need a nomination.
Ashley Johnson. But she really blew my mind during that game. I've never liked Tifa as much as a 7 remake.
Yeah. She did a really good job.
Yeah. Like, really, really brought that character to life in every layer and aspect. And there's other good performances in that game too, but Tifa stole the show for me in that game. Eric, do you think there's anyone that should have been added to that category that's not there?
Sure.
Who?
Your man who played Nemesis in the way he says stars in Resident Evil 3. So good.
You fucking asshole. You don't think No, seriously though, do you think there's anyone that should have been added?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of people in there. There's no one really. Like, yeah, like I could literally name nearly everyone from fucking
So,
Final Fantasy 7.
hold on.
Like,
Is the
I
answer
think
no
actually
then if there's
Aerith-
no one that comes to mind?
Yeah.
I'm
that would
asking
be
you,
a no.
is there anyone you think should be added? Not for the critics.
Your one who plays Aerith, to be honest.
Yeah, I know you liked
Final
Aerith a
Seven-
lot, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought she really brought that character to life. I think that was her
Yeah, she's good.
first acting. One of
Yeah,
her voice,
she's a
first
YouTuber.
Voice, yeah, one of her first voice acting gigs, and she really brought that character to life because she had that caring element to her. But then there was again, like you were saying with Ashley Johnson, that sassiness to her. Like there was a bit of a like joking and messing with him, and I thought she felt really human every time she was talking. So
I think that's a good shout out. I think for a first performance,
Mm.
really good job. Especially as
Yeah.
such a big character.
Yeah.
Like what a monumental character to take on for someone who's like really just dipping their toes in the world of voice acting, you know?
No one in that game though. I think no one was bad. No one was.
No,
like,
no,
I
no,
mean,
no. Yeah.
Everyone was really, really good. They got a really good cast of characters in that.
yeah,
Except for maybe Johnny.
nah,
But
Yeah.
But his job
Johnny's
is to
great.
be annoying, so he succeeded there.
Yeah.
I feel like am I missing a category here?
the next one is best ongoing. Is it?
Oh.
Well, there's games. I have games for Impact here on the screen.
Games for Impact, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
I
right,
don't-
yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest.
I
don't know
haven't played
any of these.
Any of these. I'm always really fascinated by this category, and it is unfortunate that they kind of go under the radar a bit. Honestly, if any of them win, I don't know what any of the games are, but I'm glad that they exist and that category exists, and it gives because I know after the fact, after this award is given out, generally these type of games get well known, and it just comes out. They're generally kind of lower end, I suppose, devs normally.
You want to list the games off just for the listeners?
Yeah.
It found Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition, Spiritfarer, Tell Me Why, and Through the Darkness of Times, or Darkest of Times. So generally, these games have some sort of pro-social meaning or message, as it's stated here. I know a couple of years back, I don't know if it was last year, or it was a few Game Awards ago, there was a game called That Dragon Cancer, and the game was all about two parents struggling with their kid who was diagnosed with cancer and stuff like that. And it was like the message of that. But the game dev actually went through that, and he made basically it was a diary of his experience through a video game.
Man.
So that's the level of what these type of games
That's what
are.
they mean by games for Impact, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't
they're
played
actually
any-
impactful.
Jesus.
So
I am not going to play any of these.
But as well,
my tear ducts will be destroyed.
Oh yeah. Eric the
Would be,
Crier.
yeah.
But I have to say, I haven't even. Here's the other thing. I can't even comment on what I think. So I can't say what I would pick because I haven't played any of them. But I can't even comment what I think would win because I haven't even heard anyone talk about these.
No.
That's
So-
what I mean.
yeah.
I'm glad that that's one nice thing about the Game Awards is that it brings light to kind of lower end games that aren't, talked about enough. So
Okay.
moving on.
Yeah, let's jump on to best ongoing. Some of these, by the way, you'll have noticed in the other categories, because they're so much bigger in some ways, maybe for us personally, we might have spent more time. Some of these we might kind of rush through quickly, like it might not spend as much time. But what are the nominations for best ongoing?
So I think for this, I'm just going to name my critic what I think the critics are going to pick because I wouldn't have a clue.
Right.
So this is awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. We've got Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, and No Man's Sky.
Okay, so
I
I think each of us, there's probably no point in saying what we would pick.
No.
What do you think the critics will pick? Eric?
I think they'll actually pick No Man's Sky, considering it's actually managed to survive this long and has evolved a lot to offer people so much new stuff. So I think they'll go for No Man's Sky.
Right.
I'm the same. Yeah, No Man's Sky. It's showing up on the new consoles as well, so it's obviously getting huge support.
I'm going to go the other way, but for similar reasons. I'm going to go with Fortnite. I think they might give it to Fortnite. for something that's lasted this long. And even like when we watched that PlayStation, event when they were still showcasing the games and stuff, it was one of the ones that got in there. I didn't see the other ones there. Now maybe that's just because of a target audience, but at the same time, I'm like, is this still a selling point for a console?
Yep.
Okay, next category, best indie.
So for outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside traditional publisher system, we've got Carry On, Fall Guys, Ultimate Knockout, Hades, Spelunky 2, and Spiritfarer.
Okay. Does one that they would personally pick here before we say what we think will get it?
Like, the only one I've played is Fall Guys, and it is great, and I love it, but I think it's obviously going to be Hades, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Hades or Spiritfarer.
But Spiritfarer wasn't in the best game of the year,
Yeah, the
and
fact
Hades
it's like
was.
the best indie game, like Hades is in there, and it was also in best game of the year. It's got to be Hades, isn't it?
It's got to be Hades.
But I've heard a lot about this Carrion game as well.
Yeah, it's you play as some weird, grotesque, meaty alien thing. I've seen like a few little gameplay footage of it.
Yeah,
looks fun.
I think personally that category will come down between Hades and Carrion, from what I've heard. But I think the critics are surely going to pick Hades, just based on how much it has been nominated elsewhere, and those other ones have not. But Fall Guys is great crack.
It is good. Yeah.
Best mobile game. I'm curious to see what you think here. So Adam,
for the best game playable on a mobile device, we've got Among Us, Call of Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, Legends of Runeterra, Pokemon Cafe Mix. There's another Pokemon game.
Okay, and actually, Eric.
Adam will add to his list now. Pokemon Cafe Mix.
Yeah.
His new action.
Eric, let's have it. What do you think?
I have only played Among Us. Among Us is good fun. I think Adam was telling me one time, I think you were telling me, or someone else was, that game was eventually going to die, and then they just kicked off somehow. Just people went, oh, this is fun, and played that. But I don't think I'll get it. Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's between one of the other three, so Genshin Impact, Legends of Runeterra, and Pokemon. And honestly, again, I've only played Among Us, so I have no fucking idea. I'm going to go with Genshin Impact.
Is that you just like the name of it? You think the critics are gonna pick it just?
Yeah.
You haven't heard anything about it. You're just like,
it's a good shout, Eric.
I'm gambling on this one. I got €50 on it.
I've heard good things about Genshin Impact, so you couldn't pick anything better. Genshin Impact is supposed to be really, really good. I do think Among Us is gonna win it.
I haven't heard pretty much anything about any of these games except Among Us. I've even played Among Us, and I'm not a mobile gamer at all. It seems like everyone has played Among Us, and it was a real talking point this year, so I think it's going to win as well.
There was a little bit of, not controversy, but confusion with this just because it's not a game from this year. It's like 2 years old.
That, to me, screams that they plan on giving it an award as well, though. It's like, can we put it in there? Because we really like it.
I think Jeff Keighley's kind of... answer to that was, well, although it came out, it was big talk. It's a big game this year. Like all the games of this in this category are really popular games amongst critics this year.
Yeah.
So therefore, it deserves to be there.
Okay, there's a couple of categories here that I feel like we there's not much we could say on them, right? Like best community support, best
I don't
know.
Probably. Well, that one's probably going to be Half-Life, isn't it?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I'd imagine it will be because of the other nominations. Maybe we should jump down to best action. There's a couple of categories.
Well, actually, just want to say there's innovation and accessibility.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, I'll read it out.
I know what it means, but I don't know why certain games are there. I know.
Well, The Last of Us Part 2 is going to win that.
Yes. I think so.
I mean, that was one of the things that they were showcasing, was how people with blindness or deafness or whatever that could still play the game due to the accessibility features in it. Yeah. So that's going to win that.
I agree.
Best action.
Best action.
For the best game in the action genre focused primarily on combat, we've got Doom Eternal, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, Neo 2, and Streets 4.
What do we think?
I think they'll give it to Doom Eternal. Thanks, Adam.
Doom Eternal.
Yes. I mean, it's absolute carnage.
It's going to be between. Yeah, it is going to be between Doom Eternal and Hades, I think. I think Doom Eternal deserves it. I absolutely think that deserves it. The combat in that is so fun.
I think
it's primarily focused on combat. That's literally Doom's thing. It's all it is action.
In this, I have to say, in this category, I feel like this is like, you know, when you go back to when we were talking about music, and you're like, I mean, there's just no, you can nominate all you want, but you might as well have just put this one thing in the category. So for me, it's Doom Eternal. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? This is its whole thing, and it does it really well.
Yeah.
So for me, it absolutely should and probably will get Best Action. The next one is Best Action Adventure.
Oof, fuck.
For the Best Action Adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving, we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That's where it's slotted in. And The Last of Us Part 2. So Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was last year's game, but obviously didn't make the cut, and this is where it's being placed.
Okay, so by the way, can I just say, since you've just mentioned that, that's one that I feel should have been, not that it would have won, but should have been in Best Audio Sound Design, I think.
Over the other games?
Or just included alongside them, because no, like I still would have, if it was there, I still would give it to The Last of Us Part 2, but I feel like it should have been given a shout out there, because the sound effects of the lightsaber, the force effects, the blasters, like the sounds are really good in it. I think it actually it deserved one other category for just a nomination.
Okay.
Anyway, Eric.
Right. So I would give it to Jedi Fallen Order, based on the fact that from Adam's description, it's got action, it's got traversal, it's got a puzzle solving. Because I don't really think The Last of Us 2 has that much puzzle solving or anything in it, so I don't know if it feels that. I didn't really play Valhalla. Ghost of Tsushima doesn't really have any puzzle solving. Didn't play Miles Morales.
Puzzles are even like, okay, how do you get past this room of enemies? That's a puzzle.
I know, but like Jedi Fallen Order has that plus actual puzzles and platforming and everything.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
So
sure.
like it's definitely the closest one to the description of it. And then I didn't play Ori, so I would choose Jedi Fallen Order because I think it does all that stuff really well. I think especially considering like the long list of Star Wars games we've been getting, and a good few of them have been pretty shit, and this comes out and it's actually really, really good. But I think they'd actually give it to Ori and the Will of the Wisps because Jedi Fallen Order didn't come out this year. It came out last year. It was just late.
Okay.
I think that's one of the things they'll take into account. So I think they'll give it to Ori.
Adam, what do you think?
I think they're going to give it to The Last of Us Part 2, but I think either Ghost of Tsushima or Miles Morales deserve it.
Okay.
One of them two. I can't make my mind over which one. Like, they're so different, really, but both of them are so fun.
Yeah. I think if it was up to me, based on that description, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order should get it. I might be able to explain it a little bit better. Not just because it has those things, but because it does them really well. And I think it no, I think like it's the same thing as like if you're like the action category, for example, and you put Doom Eternal in there and you're like, yeah, Doom is like it is an action game, and there might be another game in there that's a better game overall, but if you just take action as a genre on its own, it does that the best. And I think in terms of action adventure of those games, I think Jedi Fallen Order does it the best. It really balances all those things incredibly well. It's such it's like Uncharted in Star Wars. Like you're talking about like those are two like big action adventure platforms mashed together. It does it incredibly well, but the game that I don't think it's going to get it. I actually think Spider-Man Miles Morales might. I'm not far enough into it yet, but because of the traversal in it and how fast-paced the action is and everything, I think it has a really good chance of getting Best Action Adventure.
Yeah.
Next category, Best Role-Playing Games.
Come on. Look. let's not beat around the bush here, okay? Actually, no, this might go another way.
Yeah.
But
Go
anyway,
ahead.
for the best game designed with rich player character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences.
Here.
That's a bit
Misleading.
Oh, it can include massively
Can
multiplayer
include, yeah.
experiences, I suppose. So we got Final Fantasy VII Remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royale, Wasteland 3, Yakuza Like a Dragon.
What do you think, Eric?
I would give it the Final Fantasy 7. I think they'll give it the Persona 5.
I think that is a fair guess. Yeah.
I 100% agree with Eric.
Yeah. I
Yes.
I do too.
Eric wins.
Yeah, if it was up to me, I'd give it a 5 out of 7. When I think of RPGs, I think of like the action, the strategy, and fast paced and everything. I think it does so well. I've heard way too many good things about Persona 5 though, and Persona 5 Royal is just an addition of an earlier game that has been released this year, and it's
Actually,
up there.
that might be a reason why it won't win. Actually, is
We'll
because it
see.
could possibly have won before. In which case, maybe Genshin Impact.
That's like if that's the
Possibly.
reason. If it's because of it's an add-on, then yeah, I would have given it to Genshin.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. Okay, next category.
Best fighting. Haven't a clue. If we're gonna be honest.
Doom Eternal. That's all
Well,
you're doing. It. You fight.
What are the nominations?
We've got Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, Street Fighter 5 Champion Edition, One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, Under Night in Birth X Late CLR. What the fuck is that? Sounds like a command line. Like, what the fuck? I don't know what that one is.
Anyone think anything?
I would give it to Mortal Kombat 11. It's the only one I played.
I think it's gonna be Mortal Kombat 11.
For the crap, I'm gonna say they're gonna give the One Punch Man.
Do you hope they are? Do you?
I think it'd be hilarious.
Just for the laugh.
Because I think in the game, it's that they do it a little differently. So you pick the fighter. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But you're fighting with the fighter, waiting for One Punch Man to come along to finish the fight because he's always late to a fight. So I think you're always holding out, which I think is a very different tactic to what you usually do in a fighting game. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what you're doing it.
I would give it to Mortal Kombat, and I think they're going to.
Probably.
I think they're going to. There's a lot of excitement and buzz around that one, and it does play well. The graphics are really good in it. As far as fighting games go.
They also like added in new fighters again, and there's like the expansion and shit.
Well, that's what this one is. This is the expansion.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to get it.
Yeah.
Best family games.
Okay, so we got, for the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform, we got Animal Crossing, Crash Bandicoot, Fall Guys, Mario Kart, Minecraft Dungeons, Paper Mario.
It's Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. I don't really know what that actually is, but I don't think it's a traditional Mario Kart game.
This one's got to be Animal Crossing, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Didn't you say earlier it's the game that sold the best this year?
Yeah, and it was in Game of the Year as well. So.
I mean, it's got to.
Like, I mean, me personally would be Fall Guys, but there's when I was queuing up for Doom Eternal, there was nothing but kids waiting for Animal Crossing. It's perfect for them.
Yeah. But do you think anything different, Eric, or?
No, I think Animal Crossing because like there's people I work with like, and they put in like over 60 hours or something gameplay into it and stuff, and all they do is like go fishing or go talk to each other. So it's like their own little community, which I actually think is perfect this year for kids because they can't go out to talk to their friends. Yeah. So actually Animal Crossing would have been perfect for them to go talk to their friends in the virtual world.
I think it's going to be Animal Crossing, yeah.
I agree. I think it is as well. I don't know which one deserves it personally. I haven't played like most of these, but I do think it's the one that's going to get it. I don't know how many more of these that I have a lot to say on, if I'm being honest. What are the
Mm.
rest of the categories other than esports? Because we weren't going to get into all the because we just don't follow,
No.
like particular esports players and stuff. But what were the other categories? We'll see if there's one that's like, oh yeah, let's talk about that one.
Well, there's best sim strategy.
Okay.
There's best sports or racing, best multiplayer, content creator of the year. I think that's
Yeah.
an interesting one.
That's a good one. And then best debut game is the last one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Will we jump to content creator of the year?
sure. Yeah.
It's got to be our
So-
girl, right?
For a streamer or content creator who has made an important and positive impact on the community in 2020, you got Alana Pierce, Jay and Lopez, Nick Marks, Tim the Tatman,
Mhm.
and Valkyrie. So, like, when I was looking at this, I was kind of like between Alana Pierce and Valkyrie.
Mhm.
I actually went through and I've actually done all my votes already, and I voted for Valkyrie. Her whole streams on Among Us have been fucking hilarious. Really enjoyable to watch. But then just thinking back on, it, I was like as well as where she was and then leaving and then starting something else and leaving again and where she's going now, I think this absolutely deserves to go to Alana Pierce. It's not necessarily the positive impact on the community. I don't know much about her community. Maybe she has a big following that way. But I think of like what she, in terms of content creation, and the podcast that she's made with Troy Baker and stuff like that, I think it definitely deserves to be Alana Pierce.
I agree, 100%. I'd give it to Alana Pierce.
I was going to say Alana Pierce too.
And I think they will also pick Alana Pierce. I'd actually be really surprised if it's not Alana Pierce.
I would
I'm
be
like,
too,
she's
actually.
my girl in this one. I think Alana should get it. I'm actually rooting. I actually want her to get it because I think she has put an awful lot of work in this year.
Yeah, she's like, and just seeing someone, what would look like, oh, you're in the dream job, and then no, she leaves, and then it's like, oh, it looks like you're now after in your dream job, and she leaves, and you can kind of see that all these other jobs, what for other people, she always wanted to work in the games industry.
Mhm.
That ended up being in journalism. And although that may be a dream job for some, it wasn't necessarily where she was wanting to be. She's just kind of learning more about the industry through these jobs.
Yeah.
She ended up voice acting on Gears of War 5. She ended up voice Cyberpunk. She's slowly getting into games where she wants to be, and she's now a writer. Well, I think it's a junior writer for Santa Monica Studios. Like, what a way
amazing.
to move
And as well,
in career.
if you watch her podcasts and the way she talks about games, she often says it like while she will play some of those fun games like Among Us and multiplayer stuff and all that, she's all in for the narrative experiences. And she, like, even when they had Troy Baker on and they talk like, you know, in-depth detail, the narrative of The Last of Us Part 2, what worked for her and what didn't, which is why I'm like, I think she's going to be a really good writer as well. Like,
Yeah.
she's really, really conscious about the decisions of characters and the pacing of it. So, come on, Alana.
Yeah.
I think the rest of the categories then there's best debut game and then there's lots of esports stuff and all like that. I'm not sure we're gonna have much to say about the rest of the categories. I suppose the last thing I'd love to finish on, and we might have hinted at it, maybe people might already predict where we're going with this, but at the beginning we reckoned that the critics, like we've said all along what we would pick and then what we think the critics will pick, right? And we reckon the critics are probably going to give Game of the Year to The Last of Us Part 2, right?
Yeah.
What do we think the people's choice? What do we think people are going to give? The wider world, what are they going to give Game of the Year? Eric, you first.
Animal Crossing. They all love Animal Crossing. They're all, I don't know. The people choice. I think I said it before. See, because I was taking into account critics myself and the wider people when I said Hades.
Oh, you think Hades will get people's choice?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think because it's such a well-loved game.
Okay. And would you be happy if that got it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna go buy it today and play it. Why the fuck not?
Why not?
Why not? Is it on? Sorry, just because I know primarily PlayStation players. Is it on PlayStation? I thought it was only on PC.
I thought. Well, I only ever saw people playing it on PC, so I don't know actually.
Yeah, because my
I
friend
will go
was
check
playing
first.
on PC. Yeah, do check. Yeah. Which is why I probably haven't because I haven't even seen it on the store. Because it is something I would want to check out. Like there's high praise.
Yeah, maybe just do a quick
check there.
actually, because I
Is
think
Hades.
that's important actually in considering people's choice.
The consoles and everything, considering this
How
consoles.
accessible it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's on. I don't think it's on PlayStation.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it advertised on PlayStation.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Let's just see if I just checked the store there, but I'll just check Hades the game and see if it says what platform it's on.
Yeah.
Steam, yeah. It's on
It's
Steam.
PC.
Oh wait, platforms. Switch. It's on the Switch, Mac OS, and Windows. Switch, Mac OS, and Windows.
So if you have the Switch, Eric, what you do?
There you
All
go.
right.
All right.
we go.
Switch. I can't. Adam, what do you think is going to get people's choice?
See, that's why I kind of always think about it as well. Is you see, it's really interesting this year because you've got a shit ton of people that bought Animal Crossing, and if they're really into it, they will much like when people review bomb, they will go on Twitter and they'll go into their Reddit forums and sit and they just go, "You gotta vote for Animal Crossing. It was the best game ever." And there's loads of them. So for that reason, it may end up getting quite a lot of votes there. Hades possibly not, just because of the limited platforms it's on. How many people actually played it? We're seeing a lot of streamers and critics playing it and praising it, but how many of the people actually played it? The people. I don't think Doom Eternal is going to get it. There's too much controversy surrounding Bethesda and Doom Eternal when it launched anyway. So, yeah, I don't know if enough people actually ended up playing it. Which is interesting then, because then it comes down to just 3 Sony exclusives.
Which you can only play on PlayStation.
There's a lot of PlayStation players, so I think it's fair.
I think in the past, like when there was the PS3 era and stuff like that, and you couldn't really, generally it was a cross-platform game that was always going to win. You were never going to get an exclusive because there wasn't enough player base to play it. Whereas this time around, the majority of players have PlayStation, so it's likely these. There could be enough people that go on to purposely vote so that Last of Us doesn't win.
Oh, right, okay.
And there may be a lot of people that try to vote to make sure Last of Us does win, because there's a lot of controversy surrounding that title, which is not fair. It's not a fair way of voting for Game of the Year. You genuinely should just go in
give
and
it to the
vote
one
for
you think,
is your favorite game of the year. But based on that kind of narrow it down, I think it's going to go to Ghost of Tsushima as the people's choice.
There's a lot of technicality there. I haven't got as much of a breakdown, but I'm going to say I think Ghost of Tsushima will also be the people's choice. I think that was kind of what I was saying earlier when I said I had 3 answers to the question, which was my personal favorite is Final Fantasy 7 Remake. The critics' favorite seems to be Last of Us Part 2, and I think it's going to win it.
Yeah.
But I think generally across the board, Ghost of Tsushima is the game that deserves it, and I think the people across the world will recognize that. And therefore, I think Ghost of Tsushima will get people's choice game of the year. But those are just our thoughts on the nominations and categories for Game of the Year Awards 2020. We'd love to know what other people think. Are we way off? Do people, is everyone like, no, look, loads of people actually play PC. Hades is the best game ever made. We don't know.
I mean, loads of people do play PC.
They do. You'll have to let us know. So if you're watching us on YouTube, jump into the comments and let us know what you think would win in each and every category. You could have been doing that as you go along, as you're listening. Or let us know where we were wrong, or if there's any games that have been left out of a category that should be included. Like it's been robbed. That actually should have been up there. And also it'd be great if you enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you know when we put out bonuses and other weekly episodes. If you listen to us on audio platforms, touch base on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get into a discussion with us what you think deserves Game of the Year, what you think is going to get the People's Choice, etc., etc. All the stuff we've talked about. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.